Hey guys, in today's video I bring you an absolutely breathtaking account. My own story of near-death and spiritual rebirth. When in 2015 I was diagnosed with life-threatening cancer, my spirit left my body during surgery, and I came back transformed, with mediumistic gifts and an urgent mission for 2025-2028. What I experience beyond the veil will challenge everything you believe about life, death, and the future of humanity. Prepare for discoveries that will stir your soul. Before we start, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any content like this. And tell me here in the comments, what city are you watching from? Now take a deep breath and come with me on this intense and surprising journey. It was May 2015 when I received the news that would make my world collapse. I sat in the worn leather chair in Dr. Marcus Flynn's office, my hands shaking on the armrest. He held my fingers gently before speaking, as if he already knew that. Words could tear a life apart. Alexandria, the results confirm high-risk invasive carcinoma. We need to act quickly. My mind, trained to report cold facts, internally collapsed. The smell of alcohol in the air seemed to cut off my breath, and my throat burned as if I had swallowed fire. "What do you mean, Dr. Flynn?" My voice trailed off. "No, that can't be right." He nodded regretfully, avoiding my gaze. I felt the ground slip away from beneath my feet, while the walls of the office closed in a suffocating embrace. At that moment, everything I was, reporter, self-confident professional, daughter, seemed to evaporate. All that was left was the absolute dread of facing something bigger than any deadline or headline. I left the office staggering, my footsteps echoing in the empty hospital corridor. Outside, the Portland rain fell thin and cold like tears from the sky. Every drop seemed to pound my chest. I picked up my cell phone and tried to call my mother, but the words got jumbled. There was no consolation that could ease the weight of that diagnosis. At that moment, I knew that my life would never be the same, and that from that day on I would embark on a journey that would go far beyond simply fighting cancer. The first few days of chemotherapy were like being thrown against an invisible wall. Each session drained my energy to the last drop, leaving me disfigured and vulnerable. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror of the apartment I shared with my cat, Luna, and barely recognized the pale, thin reflection staring back at me. The metallic smell in the air after each treatment seemed to permeate my skin, reminding me that the poison coursed through my veins to save my life or to take it. One morning, just before a session, I received a call from the editor-in-chief of the magazine where I worked. His voice, normally authoritative, sounded hesitant. "Alex, are you okay? You've been missing a lot." I tried to explain, but the words broke, between sobs. "I don't know if I can continue. I feel like my body is hostile terrain." He tried to offer support, but I hung up before compassion turned to pity. It was that week that depression moved in like an uninvited tenant. There was no energy to get out of bed. Even opening the curtains to let in the light seemed like a Herculean task. Childhood memories, when I saw shadows moving in the corner of my eyes, came flooding back, bringing with them a fear I had buried decades ago. At night, disturbing dreams plunged me into an abyss where distorted faces accused me of having run away from something I barely understood. Luna jumped on the bed, meowing insistently, as if she knew I needed something more than heart medication. One of those days, I sat on the living room floor, hugging my legs, tears flowing non-stop. It was there, amidst the physical pain and emotional emptiness, that I first heard a faint whisper, not coming from me but from somewhere beyond. The voice had no clear words, just a sense of urgency and a gentle chill that ran down my spine, announcing that something was about to change. The morning of surgery arrived with deafening silence. The hospital hallway glowed in fluorescent light. Nurses passed by like hurried specters. When I entered the operating room, the odor of antiseptic burned my nostrils. Lying on the cold table, I clasped Dr. Flynn's hand, his eyes offering a flicker of reassurance before anesthesiologist's mask descended. The world around me disappeared in the blink of an eye, and then it was no more. There was no tunnel of light, No voices of family members. There was just an emptiness so deep that I even forgot who I was. It was like floating in a dark ocean of pure absence, where time and space had no meaning. Suddenly, a pulsating luminosity formed in the center of this nothingness, attracting me like a magnet. As I got closer, shapes began to take shape. Tall, ethereal figures with translucent blue skin. His eyes were vast universes, conveying a mixture of compassion and unfathomable knowledge. There were no audible words. The communication was telepathic, each thought shared as if it were part of me. "You do not belong to this threshold," transmitted Nalo, the entity closest to me. "Your journey is not over yet. There is a purpose that only you can fulfill." The realization of this message was so visceral that my emotions rose to a state of pure clarity, replacing fear with a gentle but unwavering determination. At that exact moment, I felt a painful pull, as if invisible ropes were tearing my being. I opened my eyes abruptly, gasping for air as my consciousness was dragged back into my body. The monitors were beeping frantically. Nurses and Dr. Flynn crowded around me. My chest rose and fell in rapid breaths. The smell of sweat and relief permeated the air. Minutes later, still shaking, I realized that something had changed forever. I had crossed the threshold between life and death, and returned with something powerful that no one could take from me. When I woke up in the private room, my eyes burned not just from the sunlight coming through the window, but from something deeper. A feeling of disengagement that I couldn't name. My physical strength was still weakened, but the heaviness in my chest, that black depression that had accompanied me since the diagnosis, had dissipated, replaced by a strange inner warmth. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Tala Morningstar entered the room as if she already knew every inch of the space. His gaze was calm but intense, a silent invitation to something greater. Without saying a word, she held out a small leather bag containing aromatic herbs and polished crystals. I felt my body react to each aroma released into the air, as if invisible molecules were awakening ancestral memories. She led me to a circle of stones in the hospital's inner courtyard, where dusk colored the sky with purple tones. To the sound of an ancient drum, Tala began chanting in his native language, his hands drawing invisible symbols in the air. The moment the rhythm of the drum penetrated my veins, I felt again the pull that had ripped me from my body in surgery, but this time, I was drawn within myself, unifying every lost fragment of my being. A wave of heat ran down my spine, and fragmented images of old memories. Faces, childhood scenes, buried fears, paraded before my closed eyes. Then I felt Nalo's soft presence again, but this time as if offering a luminous hug, merging her energy with mine. When the ritual came to an end, I opened my eyes with tears streaming down my face. The feeling was one of rebirth. My depression had lifted like fog in the sun, leaving room for a clarity and compassion I had never known. Tala didn't need to say anything. Her smile said it all. I had been reintegrated, not just physically, but spiritually. And something inside me knew that from then on, nothing would ever be the same. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle but profound changes. First was clairvoyance. I would stare at the blank pages of my laptop and, without conscious effort, words would appear in my mind, visions of future stories, events not yet written in linear time. One morning, as I walked through the hospital for my last radiation therapy session, I stopped in front of a nurse who was crying silently in an empty hallway. Without her saying a word, I felt her pain as if it were my own, a sharp tightness in my chest that brought tears to my eyes. When I invited her for coffee and offered her a hug, she confided that she had lost her husband that same week. I consoled her with words that came from within, guided by an empathy that surprised me. As the weeks went by, my mind began to decode invisible patterns. When I opened a weather forecast app, images of natural disasters invaded me, devastating earthquakes, massive floods, all presented like scenes from a movie that I could pause and study. In one of these moments, Elias Hartman, my college roommate and now close friend, unexpectedly showed up at my apartment with books on evolutionary astrology. He had sensed something different in me and wanted to help channel these new skills. Together we drew complex star charts on the kitchen table, the stars aligning like pieces of a cosmic puzzle that were beginning to make sense. Telepathy was the most challenging gift. Other people's voices and thoughts invaded my consciousness, without warning, demanding that I learn to filter noise and establish internal limits. At night, when I lay next to Luna, I caught fragments of dialogue and intentions, sometimes anguish, sometimes pure curiosity. Each day, my understanding of the invisible fabric of existence deepened. I was no longer just a cancer survivor. I had become an intermediary between dimensions, responsible for translating signals that the material world still ignored. The pages of my book were born at dawn, between flashes of inspiration that seemed dictated by a voice beyond me. In 2017, Beyond the Veil was released, not as a cold tale of survival, but as a cry for rebirth. I remember the day I held the copy for the first time. The cover glowed in the soft light of my living room in Portland, and my heart sank as I realized that the work carried not only my story, but the spark of transformation that I wanted to share with the world. At the launch, an independent bookstore was packed. People crowded around, some with teary eyes, others eager to touch the book before leafing through the first few pages. While reading aloud an excerpt describing my encounter with Nalo, I noticed hands shaking in the audience, not with fear but with recognition. A woman approached at the end of the event, tears flowing. "You put into words what I've felt for years but couldn't put a name to." His embrace was warm and true, confirming that my vulnerability had generated connection and healing. As positive reviews appeared on spiritual blogs and wellness websites, I received messages from readers reporting vivid dreams, near-death experiences, and signs that they now interpreted in a new light. I saw my book hit bestseller lists, but the real success wasn't in the sales. It was in the silent transformations that happened inside each person who opened its pages. At the same time, my physical health remained stable. Each checkup brought news that the cancer remained in remission. But it was the remission of fear and loneliness that most celebrated my rebirth. Elias and I began planning an online channel, where we would mix detailed astrological predictions with spiritual practices, creating a safe space for anyone seeking guidance in an increasingly uncertain world. The book had become a beacon, not just of survival but of purpose. I was no longer just a former journalist. I had become a messenger of a greater truth, called to help others pierce their own veils of fear and pain. The year 2024 marked the beginning of my online channel, but it was in January 2025 that my predictions took on a global dimension. Sitting in my home studio, a room with walls covered in star charts, crystals, and candles, I reviewed my cosmic calendar while recording a live video for my followers. "I feel tremendous Earth energy moving in September," I announced, my voice firm but soft. "Prepare for a major earthquake in Chile." A few days later, news began to appear. An 8.2 magnitude earthquake shook Santiago, confirming my prediction almost to the millimeter. In March 2025, during another broadcast, I felt intense pressure in my solar plexus, a sign I associated with political turmoil. Hours later, the warning came: a third assassination attempt against the U.S. president during a rally in Atlanta. My ratings soared, and panicked messages alternated with expressions of gratitude that I had offered a navigational map for the coming chaos. The following months brought visions of catastrophic flooding in Florida and the United Kingdom, scenes of streets turned into rivers, families fighting merciless currents. Each prediction was accompanied by practical instructions: how to prepare, an emergency kit, which evacuation routes to study, and which spiritual practices to maintain to preserve calm in the midst of fear. Among geopolitical conflicts, I saw military movements in the Panama Canal and an escalation of tensions in the Middle East, especially in Syria and Ukraine. In December 2026, I predicted the earthquake in Turkey days in advance. The confirmation was accompanied by pleas from followers for me to coordinate humanitarian aid donations. Recording for 2027, my voice became calmer but charged with urgency. The American economic crisis will reach its peak in April. Hurry to withdraw funds. Banks will be on the brink of collapse. My video went viral, inspiring heated debates in the media and preparing thousands of people for the financial storm. Each prediction was a moral challenge, sharing knowledge to save lives without inciting panic. My message remained clear. The universe does not punish, it transforms. And through these crises, everyone would have the chance to awaken to a higher consciousness. Amid the whirlwind of climate and economic forecasts, my visions began to focus on geopolitical conflicts that would shape the world panorama until 2028. It was on a freezing dawn in February 2025 that I woke up to vivid images of soldiers positioning themselves on the banks of the Panama Canal, a harbinger of strategic military movement that few imagined possible in that vital commercial corridor. I immediately reported on my channel. The presence of foreign forces will increase drastically. Prepare for disruptions to global trade. In April, when reports confirmed military units stationed near the canal, my ratings soared, and humanitarian organizations approached me to coordinate logistical responses. But it wasn't just Panama. My predictions captured the escalation of tensions in the Middle East. Scenes of Syrian cities in ruins, airstrikes, and political upheaval in Ukraine appeared as visions I couldn't ignore. I shared maps and analyses, warning about escape routes for refugees and solidarity networks under construction. At the same time, separatist movements were emerging in the United States, especially in Texas and California, fueled by economic crises and deep political divisions. My broadcasts detailed possible scenarios of internal instability, encouraging community leaders to dialogue before disagreements escalated into open violence. Each new official report reinforced the accuracy of my predictions, but also intensified the moral weight it carried. My voice became a beacon amidst the chaos, but I knew each word could trigger fear or hope. I chose hope. At the end of 2026, the tension culminated at a critical moment. An international coalition considered intervening militarily in Syria, while massive protests erupted in Kiev. I shared spiritual practices for maintaining collective calm, guided meditations focused on compassion and peaceful resolution, and organized an online volunteer network to support refugees. As I looked to 2028, I saw not just the risk of conflict, but the seed of a new leader emerging in the U.S., a non-establishment candidate determined to unite social fragments and restore global stability. My message has remained steadfast. Even in the shadows of war, there is room for the light of reconciliation and spiritual growth. The following years were marked by palpable tension in the United States, a sense of the political ground breaking beneath our feet. Between 2025 and 2027, I saw envision waves of protests and clashes in state capitals, traditional leaders being challenged both at the polls and in the streets. One night in July 2027, while recording a broadcast, I felt a different vibration in the air, not one of fear, but of latent hope. I described to my followers how this energy heralded the emergence of an atypical candidate, a middle-aged businessman with no political history, committed to bridging deep divisions through practical solutions and collective empathy. In November 2028, the projections were confirmed when this outsider won the presidential election on a platform centered on bipartisan cooperation and policies based on data and compassion. The transition of power was surprisingly peaceful, a stark contrast to the turbulent years leading up to his victory. In my videos, I highlighted how this moment represented the culmination of a cycle of crisis, not as punishment, but as a catalyst for a new era of social and spiritual responsibility. While the political wounds remained visible, polarization and resentment don't disappear overnight. The outcome reinforced my core belief. Adversity brings about profound transformation when we are able to maintain faith in the possibility of collective rebirth. I saw communities restructuring, reconciliation initiatives emerging locally and globally, and a growing appreciation for practices that promote emotional well-being and spiritual connection. This historic turning point was not just a political event. It was the mirror of an internal change that each individual had to face. My predictions, while accurate in their details, have always carried the message that true power lies in the conscious choice to respond to chaos with compassion, gratitude, and purpose. The adversity I have faced, from a devastating diagnosis to witnessing global crises, revealed an unshakable pattern. Suffering is not a punishment, but a portal to our deeper evolution. In each chapter of this journey, I learned that faith is not a dogma, but a daily practice of conscious surrender to the unknown. Compassion became my internal compass, guiding me to see the shared humanity behind every fear, every tear, every silent scream. Today, my purpose in life is to serve as a catalyst for transformation, not offering easy solutions but illuminating paths for each person to discover their own light in the midst of darkness. Gratitude has become my favorite verb, for even in the most acute pain, there are lessons to be gleaned and beauty to be cultivated. My predictions for 2025-2028 have always been an invitation, not to be mere spectators of chaos, but active agents of healing and change. Instead of succumbing to panic in the face of earthquakes, economic crises, or armed conflicts, I propose that we use these events as mirrors to question our priorities, strengthen our communities, and expand our collective consciousness. I encourage you, reader, viewer, seeker, to recognize that within you lies a strength that transcends physical limitations and social narratives. Cultivate moments of silence to listen to your intuition. Practice radical empathy when listening to stories different from yours. Celebrate each step towards healing, no matter how small it may seem. If my story proves anything, it's that we are all capable of rising from the ashes more whole and compassionate than we ever imagined. True abundance is not in accumulating material wealth, but in manifesting love, purpose, and connection, the true treasures that weather any storm. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.